Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Terry Hunter. I am an intuitive astrologer and I'm here today to talk about Uranus. Today is February 3rd, 2026, and a little later today, it's almost 4 o'clock in the Pacific time as I'm recording this, Uranus will move direct and will spend its final days in Taurus. And this is really a pretty significant transit, considering that these are the anaretic degrees that Uranus will walk through, literally electrifying each and every one of those degrees in a way that feels extremely urgent and critical. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk a little bit about the nature of Uranus. I'm going to talk about the environment of Taurus, and I'm going to talk about the period of time where Uranus will spend at the 27th, 28th, and 29th degree and what those degrees mean and how they build a sense of tension, and that urgency becomes more and more critical. And then I'm going to pull up the chart and we're going to look at some of the key aspects that Uranus is going to make, especially since these critical degrees are during our first eclipse season of 2026. So Uranus by nature is electric. It's the great awakener. It is the planet of innovation, the planet of the future, the planet of technology, the planet of global consciousness. It entered Taurus on May 15th in 2018 and proceeded to break up anywhere there had been stale energy, where there had been patterns and history that no longer served a vision of the future. So as Uranus is in these last degrees of Taurus, it's going to feel even more um, compelled, more almost even, I want to say, compulsive energy to get into Gemini, into the future, into air, into a sign that makes it feel more comfortable. Its move into Gemini will be awkward in the beginning, but the density of the Taurian landscape is creating attention. Now, I want to talk about in the sense of Uranus is an outer planet along with Neptune and Pluto. So they rule generations. It's not like having Mercury that moves, a couple of degrees here and there and it changes everything in the chart. These planets sit slowly in the sky. So what we're looking at here is Uranus sitting in these last degrees, musing about the full journey it's taken through the dense history, the plowing of the field, the lack of a true voice that Taurus can represent in its challenging energies. Because wherever Uranus goes, it wants to electrify something. It wants to poke a hole in what has been stagnant, and it wants to have an opportunity here in Taurus to express its opinion, its voice, to utilize its skills and its genius and its brilliance to facilitate making its own money and making, feeling a sense of security, because the resources that it has built in the Taurus energy are taking it into the future and trusting thyself to be able to sustain that. So I think the nature of Uranus is, most people will say it's unexpected. Wherever Uranus goes, there's disruption, there's revolution, there is a liberating energy to the revolution. But if we think about it, most people that start a revolution are considered criminals. They go against the masses or the collective thought. And this is where good news, bad news, because your genius can also make you feel exiled, make you feel alone, make you feel like you don't have, uh, someone, a ride or die, a Thelma to your Louise. And in that respect, being in the Taurus energy can make you feel like a raging bull, feeling very frustrated, that bull that wants to get out of the corral, out of its own way. We're looking at in this Taurus energy, Uranus is looking at breaking up old bonds or old stories that aren't really authentic. Taurus, it doesn't like change. And in doing so, it learns to endure what is. it sort of finds ways to comfort itself through other things, having nice belongings, eating good food, things like that. And so it can sort of not really find any urgency in the balance that Venus, the ruler of Taurus, really wants. So here, what we're looking at is an awakening of all that slumber, an awakening of where I haven't used my voice or my opinion. And this is not about necessarily going out to others and expressing your opinion to them, as much as it is about discernment between the collective and what everybody else is doing. And is that really working for me? Is this really authentic to me? Is this what I want to build? Being an outer planet, and Uranus makes aspects to Neptune and to Pluto for, very favorable sextiles and trines. But with these outer planets sort of holding court for years, they're going to move together like this. We're looking at being at generational crossroads and turning points where everything is going to change. It's kind of akin to the 90s, where one minute there were no cell phones and the next minute cell phones were dominating our existence. We are going to feel over the next few months, and as Uranus moves into Gemini deeper, because the United States has a Uranian return. So that's going to be very interesting. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on the collective to sort of be accountable for what it's created in its karma. And in that, it's going to create potentially radical endings and new awakenings. And those endings don't necessarily have to feel negative. They can actually feel like a weight off your shoulders. So that's pretty much what I want to talk about with the planets. Now, let's talk a little bit about the degrees, because I take various theories from different astrologers and sort of marry them together for myself. And when it comes to the 27th degree, which Uranus is going to stay at. Uranus is been at 27 degrees in retrograde since December 30th. And then today it moves direct at 27 degrees and 27 minutes. So that's very powerful to me. And it will stay at that degree until March 10th. So we go through the first eclipse season with Uranus stationed, both the eclipse on February 17th and the eclipse on March 3rd. We'll look at that in a minute. But I think this is so important because eclipses bring in fated events or situations that compel us or inspire us to have karmic choices, to do something different. So I think what we're looking at here at the 27th degree, with the two representing, the late degrees of any sign are mastering, maturing, applying the wisdom that was, learned throughout the journey of that planet through the sign. And the 27 has a Gemini flare to me. It has a flare of sort of a conflict between what my intuition, what my gut is telling me, and what I've learned or what information has come my way. The two representing my emotional body or the moon, and the 7 represents to me the Neptunian energy or a Libran energy. So the 27 as a whole has a Gemini feel. So I'm really mastering how my mind works, breaking down the 27. The 2 is like, am I listening to my gut instinct? Am I listening to my moon, not my heart? My heart's something different. My gut, my intuition, the interior nurturer, the interior mother. And then the 7 is really feeling like, am I creating balance for myself? The 7 being a Libra flare plays back to Venus ruling Taurus. So am I creating resources because I love them? Am I using my skills because I love them? Or am I using them because I'm fearful of my future? And Uranus doesn't want to be fearful of the future. It wants to break the box and explore a new future. So you could find that during this period of time, you're feeling like shockwaves of genius ideas where you're like, I could do this or I could do that. I always think of the guy that created the pool noodle, which is basically a piece of styrofoam that floats. and you can hang on it in a pool. And I think it costs a penny to make in China, and they sell them for, $10 every summer, and people buy millions of them. And the guy's so rich, and it's just a very simple idea. So I think when I'm looking at this 27th degree, that you're looking at an opportunity to really master how you feel. It's not about mastering or wrestling your feelings. It's about being aware of what your real feeling is. And then using the seven, the spiritual connection, the Neptunian creative energy, the imagination to align to what it is you want to experience. And then using that as an opportunity or as your doing energy. People like to do, what can I do to change it? What can I do? This is literally a doing energy. You could do that in the form of vision boards. You could do it in the form of meditations, affirmations. But again, being very aware of how you're using your voice. Is your voice somehow echoing from a history of scarcity, a history of feeling unsure, or a feeling of potential lack? Again, we're seeing a combination of the Uranus energy really representing the mind, the brilliance, the genius, the Taurus energy. The moon is exalted in Taurus. There's a very strong emotional energy with Taurus. And with the Neptunian energy, we're looking at spirituality, creativity, and how that actually does calm the mind. So that's our 27th degree. That's what we're going to be kind of walking through during that period. And again, I'm going to pull up the chart and talk about the aspects and how they'll be affecting us. Let's go to the 28th degree, because the 28th degree, again, we've got this two, which is always representing the moon. How do I feel? What is going on the deepest level of my emotional body? And then we're adding the 8. The 28 naturally, what most of us think of as a Cancerian energy, mastering the Cancerian dynamic of nurturing self as well as nurturing others. But it's really about trusting that gut instinct. It's again about trusting. It's kind of, we're doubling down on the moon. Now, in Christopher Witecki's step system, the 8 represents a Saturnian energy. So I'm looking, because it compresses these two, the way the 8 is shaped. So you could feel during this period of time, like, how was I nurtured? How have I continued to foster old beliefs that, while they may seem true at the time, they're not really aligned to the future I want to live, or where I want to go, or what my hopes and dreams have been. It's almost like, because it's in Taurus, there's no more being quiet. There's no more repeating old patterns. There's no more taking relationships that don't work into the future. There's this urgency at these anaretic degrees to get on with it, to get on with the business of being happy. And wherever Taurus is in your chart is going to reflect yet another layer of the environment of this. So if Taurus is your 7th house, it's going to be in how you make relationships. If Taurus is your 10th house, it's your public reputation and your leadership, and potentially reckoning for your public persona. If it's in the 12th house, it's about listening to your soul's voice sing, and allowing your soul's karma to be semi-balanced. Then we go into, the 28th degree will be from April 6th until April 28th. I'm sorry, 25th. So let me quickly say this. Uranus will be at 27 degrees from February 4th until March 10th. That's the longest period of time, and to me, the most stressful period of time. Normally, the 29th degree is the most stressful, but this is a long concentration, almost a month and a half, a little over, a little less. And we have 2 eclipses during that period of time. So there's a lot of revelations. When we get into the 28th degree, we're looking at more of a, I think it's a 3-week stint. Hold on, I got to turn over my page. Yeah, 3 to 4 week stint from March 11th until April 5th. And at that time, Uranus is making most of its aspects to the outer planets, and it's making a half square to Jupiter. And in Cancer, I'm revisiting my beliefs about how I was raised, the expansion I was allowed, etc. And then from the 22nd to the 5th, it's only making aspects Uranus is only making aspects to the outer planets. So we're looking at how the collective is starting to process. When we get to April 6th through the 25th, this is a very tight, about 2.5, 3 week period of time. We'll be at that 29th degree. And this is where Uranus cannot wait to get out of Taurus. It wants to leave the density of the earth and it wants to fly in the sky. And we have Mars making aspects at that time. So let's pull up the chart and do a little, I'm going to stop sharing this face of mine and start sharing the chart with you. Okay, so this is today, and I'm going to click on to Uranus. So we'll just focus on that right now. Uranus is in the last hours of its retrograde. This evening it will move forward. And again, you can see 27 degrees, 27 minutes. That to me is very significant. And I go back to what does that 27th degree talk about? It's talking about my mind versus my gut versus what I want for my future in the way that I can create that through my mind and my mind's imagination. I'm not really going to address too much of the personal planets unless they come into sort of a dynamic I think is really impactful. So let's go first to the sextile here that's going to be continued. We've got Saturn. It's Saturn at the anaretic degree, okay, of Pisces. So there's a video on that. Check that out. It's really such a powerful karmic point. And now we have another karmic point. This sextile needs an activation. It needs to have some sort of co-creation from the party. Like we need to be aware of it and move our story forward. I also think because both Uranus and Saturn rule Aquarius, where Pluto's been hanging out for a while, there is this wanting to renovate. But at the same time, I don't necessarily need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there are systems or structures that actually working, great. But if they're not, it's time to move forward. On the 13th, we're going to see Saturn move into Aries. Now, this is really powerful because, it's a little later in the day, so I'll just go to the 14th. This is really powerful because this conjunction between Neptune and Saturn, which I've done a video on as well, is on the world axis. And this only happens, like once every 1500, little less years. Last time was the year 555 BC. So there's a real new structure being offered, a new sense of self, a rebirth of something. And the Taurus energy, it is anchoring in sort of, to me, with Uranus stationed at 27 degrees for so long. It's like Uranus is saying over and over again to Taurus, keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on the prize. Remember, you planted that seed. Now we have to nurture that seed through our thoughts. We have to remember that we are as resourceful as we can possibly be. We have skills. We have the ability to create our own security. And that is as a people, as an individual, not just because we plugged into something else. Saturn and Uranus are the co-rulers of Aquarius, and in Aquarius is Pluto right now. And I just have to kind of hit that button because that button is the literally the earth landscape, the earth background. It's where we are headed and where we are going, and there's no stopping that train. So the more we can recognize that we are co-creators through our imagination, through our thoughts, through our verbiage, the vibration of the words that come out of our mouth are literally, the recipe and the components for what is coming ahead. Because this is a period of time that is it can be very unnerving. It can be feel like, I'm having a nervous breakdown, but there's also this feeling of, if I don't release this tension, if I don't surrender to what's coming, the innovation, it will just bowl me over. So I think this is really powerful. Then we go to the eclipse. And the eclipse on the 17th, I did a separate video on no, I haven't done it yet. I'm sorry, I apologize. The eclipse is actually at 20, let me put the right time in here, 4:01 a.m. Pacific time, because the eclipse is at an anaretic degree, 28 degrees of Aquarius. So here we've got this square, right? We've got this tension between what was old, what I know is worn out, what I know isn't working. This new moon annular solar eclipse is where the moon is the furthest away from the earth, and it looks as if there is a ring of fire behind the moon. And I think that's so powerful because we don't see the backside of the moon from our perspective here on earth. And that's indicative of us not seeing some of our own deeper emotions sometimes. We get so caught up in our history and who we've been and what we need to do to survive that we really kind of think of our emotions as luxuries. And here that ring of fire is saying, no, this is the truth. This is really the platform I'm co-creating on. So this square, it feels very tense to me. And again, here we are at these anaretic degrees. And this is where Saturn even kind of plays that part in the eight, where there's this compression, there's a feeling of something coming in and like almost, you've got to push the toothpaste out of the tube, but once you push it out, you can't put it back in. That's what this feels like to me. So that's very interesting to me. Um, Before we get to the full moon eclipse, what we're going to see, let me just put this back to 12 o'clock, is a square with Mars, which I think is going to be pretty tense. That's going to happen around the 23rd, and it goes all the way through to the day of the eclipse, where I believe it'll be exact on the 26th and the 27th. But here you can see the growing Mars in Aquarius, is a little less emotional. I was going to say cold, but it's not necessarily cold. It just knows what it needs to do. It cuts through the fat here. And then it's fighting with Uranus. There's a tension here. And it could be anything from just wanting to explode. It's exact for 2 days on the 26th and the 27th. These might be days you want to pay attention to because there can be a growing feeling of anxiousness. And it could be because there are people that are married to the old ways, or they're married to their old opinions, or they're standing steadfast in something that doesn't agree with you anymore. And here's the big fight. And it feels a little bit like, honestly, to me, it feels because Uranus is stationed. Okay. Uranus feels very powerful. Mars is going to move a little quicker. And I feel like um, I just have to be mindful of how I assert myself on this day. If I'm fighting battles that are a waste of my time, that no one's listening and isn't going to work anyway, don't do it. That's what I feel like this is saying to me. Others may disagree. Again, we've got this stationing planet that wants to move into the future. It cannot wait to get out of this dense, forest that it's been in and get up above the tree line so it can see something. On the second eclipse, on the third, which is a full moon lunar eclipse at 3:37 a.m. Pacific time, we see, oh, well, this is what I say. The full moon eclipse isn't making any aspects to Uranus, but look what Uranus is doing in the background. Venus is exalted here, and she's in the last anaretic degrees of Pisces. So this is like activating, what do I think about money? What does my soul really think about money? What does it think about my creativity? What does it think about who I am and how I express my Venusian dynamics, my love, my balance, my harmony, my sense of comfort? And we're still feeling this tension here, but now Mars has moved into Pisces. And here Mars is a lot more empathetic and emotional and aware of a bigger picture of humanity than it might be. I know that Aquarius rules humanity, but here Mars feels a little bit like, I got to cut out the Cancer sometimes, where when it comes into Pisces, it recognizes the journey of doing that. So it becomes the peaceful spiritual warrior. So I think that this is an important time because there's going to be an illumination of some kind for us all. This full moon is in Virgo. We're going to change the nodal axis. So there'll be some illumination during that time of where we've enslaved our thoughts, our daily activities, even our health, as a with Uranus in Taurus, there's a very physical nature to this, and there could be an illumination of how my anxiety, how my worry, how my, constant looking at where I've got to plug the holes has actually eroded my daily activities, my sense of peace, and even maybe my physical body. I could even feel exhaustion. That's the other thing about these anaretic degrees. They can feel exhausting, literally physically exhausting. Okay, so now we go to March 11th, where we've moved to the 28th degree. And I know this may seem kind of funny, like, what do these degrees matter? They absolutely matter. Don't ever let anyone tell you they don't, because this is where you master everything you know. This is where we go back into the real conversation that's going on with Uranus. Uranus and Pluto are not now in a tight degree, but as Uranus speeds up and moves into Gemini, that trine is going to get tighter and tighter. And the brilliance, the mental dynamics that are going to be recognized as manifestors. I mean, I think that, on some level, we have been babying ourselves in Pisces. And when it comes to this Uranus and Pluto dynamic in the sign of intelligence, in the sign of brilliance, in the sign of independence, and of, how we learn, how we discern information, things are going to pop, 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 pop. And so this is the beginning of that. And part of I think, the anchoring of it, because this is a harmonious aspect that I don't have to I don't have to activate it. It sort of works for me, right? Uh, but Neptune, I have to activate. I've got to remember where I am and why I, as a human, require entertainment, fun, imagination, fantasy, illusion. It serves a great purpose to stoke and to foster and nurture hope and, happier things. So I think that this is a long standing, pay attention to that wherever this is in your chart. Um, we will see that this outer planet activity basically goes on from now until about the 22nd, when we get Jupiter in for a little chat for a few minutes. Now, Jupiter here in Cancer is stationed direct. It had been going retrograde, and the half square to Uranus is again a spot I can't see. It's an inner tension. It's like something inside of me can feel that I might be getting in my own way, or something might be, but I don't really know exactly what it is right now. It's kind of elusive to me. And that's where I love that the sun is here on the 22nd, but I'm really focused in on Neptune and even Pluto giving me more information when I'm willing to dig deep into what do I want for my future. I don't think that Pluto needs to focus on the toxic waste in my life that's blocking my future. That's not what Pluto feels like in Aquarius to me. It feels like Pluto knows that the only way out is to keep moving forward, and that I can only use my history as a rear view mirror so I don't back up into something when I get in a corner. And this is Jupiter could very well be the corner right here, the thing you can't see. And that could come from your childhood and your upbringing. And then after this period of time, from the 22nd through the 5th, I'm just going to go to the 5th of April now. Where is it? There it is, way over there. We are seeing mostly these outer planets. We have people popping in and out here. Mars is now about to move into its domicile, okay, into Aries, and it's going to meet up with Saturn. So that's going to be a party we'll talk about later. But for now, as we're getting to, again, this anaretic degrees, Uranus is just about to go for a next couple of weeks into 29 degrees, and that's where it gets hot and heavy quick. And I think the sextile to Mars here is basically saying, strategize, plan, plot, get your map, get your tools, and get ready to go. Because once it moves in, there's taking no prisoners once Mars is into Aries. It's like, this is my hometown and I'm doing what I want. So, and again, that sextile to Uranus will be brief, but it'll be potent, because this is like nobody wants to sit and wait for anything at this point. None of the planets. My dog is doing zoomies on my bed right now. I can hear her. She's so funny. All right, let's get to the 6th. the next day, and we see that Uranus has moved to that anaretic degree. Again, we haven't gotten into the exact sextile with Mars, so that's brewing. So you're going to feel that coming up. This is going to feel fast and furious. This is where we really start to feel the gas. As Mars can't wait to get home. Mars is going to be home on the 9th. Almost home. Almost home. On the 10th. There we go. And again, this is, these are favorable aspects. This is, works for me effortlessly. But this, I really have to be aware of the peaceful warrior. And the peaceful warrior doesn't back down, but doesn't war up against things that are useless or things that are just going to burn the energy, Mars's energy. When we get to the 21st, because not much too much goes on between now and then. We have a few personal planets popping in and out. But I think on the 21st, there we go, we see Venus here. She's moved through her domicile, and now she's right up on Uranus. And here I'm thinking that Venus is really wanting to move her story forward. I want to use my skills. I want to, start that business. I want to start that, podcast. I want to get out. I don't want to be trapped anymore in this old story of duty, loyalty that doesn't serve me. Literally, the second house rules history. I know we give a lot of that credit to Saturn, but Taurus very much rules the personal history. So Venus here, and Venus, when she gets into Gemini, she doesn't mind being in Gemini because it gets a lot lighter there. But here, she's still very serious about making resources and bringing in security that she can count on, that she doesn't have to ask someone else for. Hence the sextile here to Neptune. And we go to the 20, I believe it's the 26th. Did I write this properly? My handwriting is terrible. And on the 26th, we see Uranus has entered Gemini. And this is going to be a very, very powerful, powerful transit. We'll be doing a separate video on that, meaning me and all my personalities in the not so distant future. But I think it's important to have this video because right now, the ruler of Taurus has been floating around Uranus, wanting to find its self-worth, its balance, its harmony, its voice. I always think that Venus, because she has no moons, is ravenous to be acknowledged. And here I think that she is starting to see that she gets to acknowledge herself first. And as she does that, she gets to move into a future that is much more pliable. And I don't know, for her, I think each one of us is going to experience these transits a little bit different because some of us are going to get caught up in the swirl of what was, and that could be really challenging. And some of us are going to be able to keep our heads above the tree line. And when we do that, we're going to find wings to soar. So thank you for listening. My name is Terry Hunter. I'll be back with more tidbits about these planets because the world is changing. Please like, please subscribe, and please share. I'll see y'all soon. Bye-bye.